no matter what bad comes your way, all you're focused on is what is next. And all you're focused on is the activity of having leads every week, working the hell out of those leads every week. And really, I think a big difference is some people go the extra mile, door knocking, for instance. Some people say to me, hey, like, why do you still door knock? You're the number one producer. And I say, yeah, that's why I'm the number one producer, because I keep doing the things that got me to the dance and I don't change them.
I'm like, what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'ma live it to death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given is a gift. If I'm a living, I'ma live it to death. Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody to episode 4 of the Road to Hall of Fame training series. I'm very excited for our call here today, just because we do have the honor and pleasure of interviewing the number one producer here at Family First Life, Mr. Steve Giordano. It's funny because him and I, we hadn't met for the 2 years that I've been here, but just in the last 3 months, I've seen him at least a half a dozen times, which is awesome. So I'm happy to have him on here. So thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
Yeah, man. Awesome to see you. And yeah, it was great. Like, I feel like I know you, like, in seeing you 3 times in a month, like more than I ever could have in a million years.
Yes, that's awesome, man. So yeah, this is the Road to Hall of Fame. Obviously, we're having these trainings all over the country. It's the theme of the company this year. We're really trying to promote how Hall of Fame is something that is doable if you're willing to put in the work. And I think one of the themes that I've noticed is that Hall of Fame is not really a goal that's really a skill set goal. I've noticed it's more of just a consistency goal. If someone's willing to actually go ahead and work, 16 run days for a month for 12 months in a row, Hall of Fame is absolutely in the cards. So I'd love to just kind of start off with, a little bit of your background, how you got into the business, if you have any previous insurance experience, and just what that original couple of months looked like for you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, of course. I was never in the insurance space. I worked in hospitality business management my entire career, and just never felt I was able to kind of get where I really wanted to go. I was able to get promotions and this and that, which was great, but you had to move all around the country to do it. There's only so many restaurants when you're in certain corporate companies. And I just want to change, and found a passion for kind of we'll call it financial services, because I really enjoyed what the products and things did, whether it be on a death benefit side or like an IUL side for cash accumulation. So I found some passion there. Luckily, Mark Mead was a mentor of mine and a friend, and he introduced me to it, and I just kind of took the ball and ran with it because I had no choice, because I had a mortgage to pay.
Fair enough. Okay. So you came in here with no insurance experience, hospitality experience. So how did some of that kind of transfer over to here? I mean, were you nervous, afraid to pick up the phone and call people? I mean, obviously you're the number one producer, so I know you're not afraid to call people now, but was there any nervousness when you first got started?
I think there was probably nervousness, but I think I got past it very quickly, because I knew that I had to make it happen. I also knew that I was going to treat it like a real job, because I was so used to. There was a good and a bad about hospitality coming into this. The good was you worked a ton in that business, nights, weekends, holidays. So like working a lot of hours and odd hours was not anything foreign to me. The thing that I had to get used to was the mentality around, in hospitality, you're so kind of going above and beyond for people and trying to make everybody happy, that I think I struggled a little bit in maybe like the first month or so with like the in-home and the phone, because it was, I got to try to be that guy, when here you're not that guy until they're your client. When they're your client, then you're that guy. So those are it was kind of the good and bad of that industry.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. So having to go from the person who is super peppy in their personality, trying to, let's say, get a good tip, to the person who is like super monotone and just really strategic and tactful in everything you do in the home, until obviously you become a client, and then, that personality starts to come out. So that's good. I think where I kind of want to start here, just obviously being the number one producer in the company, it took just an incredible work ethic. It also took the right mindset. So somebody on here, we'll just say we've got someone who's gone out and they've, maybe been able to help 10 to 15 families a month, but they're trying to turn the corner to get to the 30 to 40 a month. Just from a mindset perspective, what would you say the difference between a Hall of Fame producer's mindset versus someone who's only helping 10 to 15 families a month?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think it's this simple. The person who's going to be a Hall of Fame producer, and we'll call it help 34 families a month for the year, they're going to just keep it moving no matter whatever comes their way, good, bad, or ugly. So understanding that, like with a real job, you had mentioned it earlier, if you're running 4 days in the field a week, and that's 16 a month, and all you're looking for as a Hall of Fame producer is consistency, the mindset has to tell you that no matter what bad comes your way, all you're focused on is what is next, and all you're focused on is the activity of having leads every week, working the hell out of those leads every week. And really, I think a big difference is some people go the extra mile, door knocking, for instance. Some people say to me, hey, like, why do you still door knock? You're the number one producer. And I say, yeah, that's why I'm the number one producer, because I keep doing the things that got me to the dance and I don't change them. So I think if you're looking to be a Hall of Fame producer, your mind has to be strong. You also have to understand that, like, percentage wise, you're going to have a percentage that cancels. It's just the way it works in the industry. Let's call it 25%. And there's actually good behind that percentage. And here's why. One, it always keeps you humble to understand that you have to get better, because until 100% of everybody keeps all the policies that I write, like, I'm not going to feel like I'm the greatest thing in the world. So I think you have to focus that. And you almost have to go at your activity in your mind around what could be taken from me as opposed to what I'm going for to gain. Like if I have a great weekend, like I just had a really good weekend, and I got in the office today at 8 a.m. and I'm like, you know what, like I got to dial hard because you could take it from me tomorrow, and I think people have to have that mentality when they're trying to get that big goal. A lot of times people focus on the goal and they don't focus on what it takes to get them there. The simple thing is the simple activity that has to just happen over and over and over, whether you want to or whether you don't, and then you do that, and then that adds up to success.
Yeah, I think what I'm kind of hearing here is that, Hall of Fame producer, regardless of what the results were, if they're coming into Monday morning after a weekend, good, bad, or indifferent, they're smacking the reset button. They're starting back at zero, and they realize that what happened over the weekend, whether it was good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's over. And now it's Monday, and it's time for me to look forward to who am I going to help on Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's awesome. And just the idea, like you said, of just getting better. I think just the mentality behind, okay, constant, never ending growth. I'm always looking for feedback. I'm always trying to figure out how can I help every family that I sit with. Of course, I'm not going to help every family that I sit with. Of course, every family I sit with is not going to keep the policy. But like you said, until 100% of the people keep the policy and buy the policy, we still have room for improvement and growth. So that's awesome, man. I think another thing I'd love to touch on, you mentioned the idea of a chargeback. So you're staring down a new agent who had their first couple chargebacks, and they're saying, oh my gosh, this isn't what I was expecting. I know you told me up front that, 25% falls off. Mindset of a Hall of Fame producer who sees a chargeback coming in versus that new agent who's maybe scared and gets paralyzed when they see that.
Yeah, I think we understand the long game, I would say, whereas somebody new, they're looking, let's face it, a lot of people new, they get into it and they're scared to begin with, and now you throw that at them, it's just like another fear, and you have to, it's almost like when they make the sales, you got to keep them even keel to understand that that's great, like you said, hitting the reset button, what's next. You have to condition them to not get too high, not get too low, and just keep working and work it like a real job. If you go out and you book 3 appointments, that doesn't mean you have the right to go run 3 appointments. I mean, you do, but you're not going to be as successful as the guy who goes and door knocks 15 houses plus has 3 appointments. You're just not going to be. So I think I'm trying to preach that to that person, because you'll have your ups and your downs, but you can always outwork the situation. You can always outwork the chargeback. You know, you can write more insurance, you can get better, you can see more people. Like all of those things are in your control. You don't control the chargeback. You control what's next.
You control what's next. You control the activity that you put in. You can't control whether the client says yes or no. You know, we can do our best to, you know, guide them to make a decision, but we can't control that. And we can't control if they keep it. We just do our best to, you know, help solidify that sale. But at the end of the day, the only thing that we can control is the work. So that's really good, man. Someone having just constant ups and downs in this business, I think that it's just important to touch on that as well. I think one thing that I learned from, you know, a coach a long time ago, and we talk about this with our team all the time, is just level attitude regardless of what's happening. My coach, he called it 68 and breezy. 68 and breezy, meaning, you know, you got the thermostat, that's my perfect temperature. You know, I can wear a long sleeve and shorts, or I can wear, you know, pants and a t-shirt. You know, when the thermostat goes up to 72, what happens? The air conditioning kicks back on and brings me back down to 68. If it goes down to 60, the heat kicks on, brings me back to 68. So whether I'm hot or I'm cold, I'm 68 and I'm breezy. And I even ride around in the car with 68 with the heat or the air conditioning on, just to kind of keep my mindset there. But just whether you have a good day or a bad day or a good week. I mean, everybody has bad weeks. I mean, I've had so many bad weeks here in the last, you know, 2 years, but I've never had a bad month, because like you said, you can always outwork the bad week. So, I mean, just somebody who's riding the emotional roller coaster of, you know, I'm up and I'm down, I'm up and I'm down. You know, what would your piece of advice to them be?
I think the biggest pitfall I see with that is people, they just don't work hard enough. Like, meaning, if you're gonna have the ups and the downs, but if all of a sudden you have it down and then it's I have to go take, you know, today off to go do whatever. My thing to them is like, you wouldn't be doing that if you worked in a regular 9-to-5 job. You wouldn't be doing that if you worked in corporate America. There's plenty of people that can fail doing this, plenty, and that's their fault at the end of the day, you know. And it depends on the level of success that you want. You know, like, I want to build a big agency, write a ton of insurance, help a lot of people. Like, I want that. Not everybody's going to want that, which is fine, but we need to find where you're not cheating yourself and you're actually working it on a consistent basis and working it when it gets hard. It's really easy to do things when they're easy. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's simple. Like, this is the most simplistic business industry company that there is, but it's really, really hard if you're lazy and you don't work. Like, you are going to get destroyed if you don't work. So I think it's trying to get them to just understand working and working through adversity. When I'm interviewing people, one of the things I'm trying to get better at is I want to throw things at them in the beginning. So this way I know if I want to work with them or not. Because if you're going to get thrown off the scent in the beginning, like, you're not the right person for this. You're just not.
That's good, man. That's really good. Okay, so let's kind of keep it moving here. So the phones, you know, you talk about the phones all the time. You can't even get to the point where you're good at selling insurance if you're not willing to master the phones. You know, we talk about, you know, hey, so-and-so has, you know, an 80% closing ratio, but that doesn't even matter if you don't put in the reps to get the appointments. I tell people all the time, they're like, well, I really want to, you know, I have my first dial day coming up, you know, but I'm just watching in-home video after in-home video. I'm like, dude, all you have to do is memorize a very specific open, telling them who you are, why you're there, what we're going to do today, fill out the financial inventory and make a call. You might get some objections and you're going to have to overcome those. But at the end of the day, you get better at that through repetition. The in-home, the only way you get good at it is by doing it over and over and over again. Dialing, if we don't even get into the home, we can never help a family. We can never make a sale. So Hall of Fame mindset on dialing the phone. What does the dial day of a Hall of Fame producer look like? You know, how serious are you taking that? How strict is your schedule? And just what advice do you give a new agent who's maybe getting beat up on the phones?
I think, one, you need to create a tremendous amount of urgency on dial day, right? So 8:00, you can book it. You can ask people in my office, like, I'm sitting myself in that chair and I'm dialing. So that's number one. Like, your best ability is availability. So be available to be working the times that you need to be dialing. Having your leads set up, having everything organized, having enough understanding, like, let's say percentages. I mean, I think we all talk about percentages. Okay, like if it's internet leads, like assume you're going to book 10 to 15%. Maybe you book 20, maybe you book a little more, maybe you book a little less. So obviously buy accordingly, buy diverse, having some diversity in your leads, but getting on the phone 1 at 8 a.m., then 2, ferociously dialing. And one thing just in our society in general today is people's attention span. So it's like getting them to like just kind of keep it moving and keep it going and dialing that entire time and not getting distracted by the million things that distract us. So that's the other thing. And then I'd say less is more. You don't need a ton of information when you call people. You need to understand when they're going to be home. Like, get me agreement that you're going to be home and I'm going to be there. And everything else that I need to accomplish will happen there. I don't need to know your health. I don't need to know your meds. I don't need to know anything. I don't want to say too many words on the phone because I don't want to lose the appointment. And then the other thing that I've always tried to focus on was asking questions in my phone as opposed to me making statements. Saying script doesn't mean I'm going to read a piece of paper and then just read it to you and assume like you're going to book an appointment with me. I'm going to get punched in the mouth. I'm going to get thrown off my game. So there's 2 ways to counter that. One, end everything with asking them a question, because now you're throwing them off. Every time, I say, what time are you home, Bob? He's going to answer it. What time you this, Bob? He's going to answer it, as opposed to statement. And then the other thing would be learning how to be quick at transition. If somebody tells me something that I don't want to hear, I can't go crawl in a ball and say nothing for 30 seconds because then they're going to hang up. I have to have a rebuttal, and it's typically acknowledging what they said, but then getting to the next question that gives me the upper hand. So it's like you're playing that ping pong, but you got to always be taking it back, quickly. And that's what I think takes a normal producer dialer to a Hall of Fame dialer.
So being able to quickly acknowledge, throw them off by, perfect, that's exactly why I'm calling. Okay, perfect, got it. Acknowledge the objection, overcome the objection, and then quickly ask a question, because when you ask a question and they answer, you're back in control. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I've been dialing the phone. I know you've experienced it many, many times, where somebody says a smokescreen objection that really wasn't a real objection, and you just quickly minimize it and ask them the next question. And then they never come back to that objection again, and you go on to book the appointment. But so many people, they'll get caught up in trying to do this long-winded explanation for why we need to come out, that you don't really need that. It can be very, very quick, pat it back, with the ping pong ball, and then just ask another question. They answer, you're back in control. So that's super important. When it comes to the phones, you said ferociously dialing. I think that was a cool thing to hear. That means sitting down in the chair and not getting up. That means, I have to go to the bathroom. Well, I'm gonna book one more appointment before I go to the bathroom. I want a sandwich for lunch. Okay, well, I'm gonna book one more appointment before I go grab my sandwich. So just dig a little bit deeper into that. I think the mindset, I think a lot of people have trouble just sitting down in the chair. But Zach Tardowski said this. He goes, the only thing I hate more than dialing is I hate dialing at 8 p.m. because I wasn't serious about my dial time throughout the day.
Yeah,
so yeah, I mean, what would you say just in regards to the ferocious dialing? What does that really look like?
Well, yeah. And one thing I'd piggyback on what he says is, what's the worst when you go out in the field and you had 3 appointments and you look at yourself and you say, you know what? You gypped yourself on dialing hard enough. And now you're mad that you don't have enough appointments. So what I've always tried to do for myself is if I don't get it done on a dial day, I punish myself by door knocking. Like, meaning, like, if I'm in the field and I'm in the field 8 hours, like, it's 8 hours. If I book 3 appointments, I'm door knocking people. I'm doing something. I'm buying more leads. I'm doing a call transfer. I'm doing something because I didn't make it happen on the phone. I think just in general terms, you have to dial that phone, bang, 4 times in a row from one number. Oh, they didn't answer. Okay. Go to another number, bang, 4 times in a row, or go to the next lead, bang, 4 times in a row. And you're just over and over and over. You're pounding it, and you're not like tiptoeing. Oh my God, like they're going to get mad. I called them 3 times. Like, yeah. Is there a percentage that will? Sure. Is there another percentage you're going to get on the phone because this is really important? Yeah. And they're going to actually be glad that you did because it's really important. They just didn't know why you were calling. So I think your mentality you got to play offense, not defense. If you sit there and tiptoe around it, you're never going to book enough appointments. Call people 7 times in a row. What's the worst thing they're going to do? And then when they pick up, like, don't act aggressive, but be like, hey, Mary, like, and then it's like, no big deal. Oh, you called me 7 times. Oh man. Yeah, that's my phone does that. Sorry. Anyway, I got you over at 123 Main Street. Is that correct? Like, make it very normal, have some fun with it, play the psychology with it. I think that's the other thing with the phone and this business in general. You got to play some psychology. This isn't always black and white. Bob filled out the form for insurance, I go get him insurance. There's some nuance sometimes that you got to play.
And I mean, 2 things will kind of break down there. One, I used to be terrified of triple dialing, and I thought that people were going to be mad. And I remember Grady one time was like, dude, I want you to call this lead 8 times in a row. Just do it. Like, you have to get over this fear. And it was powerful for me. And now we do live dials with our team. If someone doesn't let me get through my first 3 sentences where I confirm the first piece of info, if they hang up on me before I even have a chance to confirm that it was life insurance, like if they haven't even been able to tell me I'm not interested, that's not what I'm looking for, but they hang up on me in the first 3 sentences before I can get it out, I'll call them 25, 30 times in a row. I don't even care. And there's been times on live dials where I'm just hitting the same person over and over and over again. And then they'll answer and they'll be like, what do you want? Mary, right. You called me 25 times in a row. Did I? We're calling from a computer. It must've been a glitch. Anyways, I got your date of birth, and you just keep going. And I booked the appointment. So it's just funny because you have nothing to be afraid of when it comes to dialing the phone multiple times in a row. Anybody who single dials and they do not triple dial, you are going to have a very hard time competing with someone who triple, quadruple dials the phone 7 times. It's not even close. And then you mentioned some of those nuances on the phone, the psychology game. Well, I mean, you have somebody who, let's say, is an instant internet lead. As we all know, an instant internet lead is somebody who filled out a form somewhere online. And when they fill out a form somewhere online, the behavior of someone who fills that form out is a little bit different than someone who did direct mail or a Facebook lead, because direct mail, they're filling out one form, they're done. Facebook, they're scrolling through Facebook, they click on the form, they fill it out, they're done. This is someone who actively typed in, let's say on Google, life insurance in my area, life insurance quotes. They're actively looking. They didn't see the billboard on the side of the road and then pull over to go to McDonald's. They're like, no, I'm going to McDonald's. And they wanted to see, they pulled off the road and they see there's a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, a KFC. I'm going to pick which one. Same thing with someone who's looking for life insurance. They are looking for multiple options. So not only did they fill out our form, which exclusively goes into our CRM, but they filled out multiple forms. So you have to just know from a psychological perspective, their phone's blowing up. How can you be the anti-salesperson? So someone goes, I'm not interested. Well, Mary, are you not interested because you're actually not interested, or because your phone's blowing up with so many phone calls? And it's just like, once again, it throws them off. And she's like, yeah, my phone has been blown up. Perfect. That's exactly why I'm calling. I'm the manager calling to apologize. Your phone's been blowing up so much. My job is to get the info out to you like you originally requested before your phone started blowing up. And that's what you're originally looking for, right? Yeah, thank you so much. It's calling it out. Hey, I know your phone's blowing up. Hey, I know that you're being very annoyed by the insurance, telemarketers. That's not me. I'm the underwriter. I'm the local guy to get the information out there to you like you originally requested. So there's so much psychology to it. So that's awesome, man. Last couple things, and we'll kind of move into some questions. The in-home. I mean, the in-home is just where, obviously you get past the phones, you get to the home. This is where you shine. I mean, you've been able to protect well over, 1,500 families, I believe last year. I mean, literally thousands of families in your career, across you as well as your agency. And, you obviously, America is our favorite carrier. You were the recipient of the Bobby Award the last 2 years, which means #1 producer with America, as well as Family First Life. I'd love to just hear just some of those nuances, maybe mindset when you walk into the home for somebody, how to maintain control, because to be able to protect that many families, you have to understand how to take control in the home. So let's start there.
Yeah, I think the control piece is a very interesting, again, psychological thing to think about. For me, I'm very simplistic. I really have focused on who it is that we meet with, like you had mentioned, whether it's, what they're filling out and the mentality of that person that's filling that thing out. So I try to keep it crazy simple because I don't want to be over anybody's head. I want people to understand that this is simplistic, because the reality is the reason they didn't go to whoever insurance to go get all this, presentation and all this craziness is because they need simple, so I therefore try to keep it simple. In the psychology, though, of my in-home, I'm just a question asker. I try to be the greatest question asker that there is, because I want them to basically paint me the picture as opposed to me being the sales guy. I don't want to be selling you anything. I want you to be selling me why you need it. So I'm asking a lot of probing questions around, I'm assuming, Bob and Mary, I'm here because you want to make sure if something happens to either one of you tomorrow that we're protected. Is that accurate? So it's like, it's the question that you're going to get the answer you want. Then I tell them it's a very simple process. And then a big thing that I think is a lost art, and why I think I'm able to issue pay a lot of policies, is because I focus on health. As opposed to me trying to get you what you can't necessarily get. A lot of times people want term, they can't get term. So the biggest poker game that I'm playing is I'm not showing anything in the way of what the product is until I'm really very comfortable in what they can get. Because really the sale is a matter of, you can get this, and now I kind of have an idea around that. So therefore I'm not going to show you and sell you on what you can't get. I'm going to sell you on what you can get, and I'm going to make that the greatest thing in the world, and how that makes sense. So for instance, if you can't get term and I show you permanent, permanent goes forever. Permanent builds cash value. And now all of a sudden you start getting agreement on I don't want something that would run out. And it's almost like you're selling them, but they're selling you, and in the back of your mind, they can't get this thing they're not qualified for. So I think that's a big piece of the sale. And then from there, budget, making them know we want to keep it in the budget, talking a lot about beneficiary, talking about death, which I was not comfortable doing early on, talking about illness, talking about what the financial burdens look like, and being insanely real about it and not being afraid of it, because you have to create urgency around death to get people to move. It's the only way. If this is a transactional sale, you'll get killed. This isn't a car. This is something that not everybody can get, and that's going to impact, your wife, your kids, your future generations. So I'm really focused there. And then when it comes to options, I want to show a couple of options. I don't want to show a crazy amount. I don't want to confuse. And then I'm telling them we're filling out an application, and I'm your advocate to see if we can actually get you covered. And then I'm just starting apps. I'm not asking questions. I'm assumptive to the fact that I'm sitting in your house and you need insurance. It's just a matter of what type and what cost.
So I'm assuming the words, so Steve, do you want to start an application, never comes out of your mouth?
Never.
And why would it?
I'm just typing that thing out. I'm filling it out. And then if they don't want to, I'm just moving on.
Yeah, perfect. So I think the biggest thing I took from that is just simplicity. I think that once again, like you said, if someone wanted the razzle dazzle fancy presentation, they'd go down to, XYZ company insurance down the street, but they're intimidated by that. So instead they decided to go on Google and type in, life insurance, and they wanted to either, they wanted a quote over the phone, but then you were able to get the appointment and got into the home. And one of the first things that I do is I'm like, okay, Steve, no fancy presentation. And I literally throw my hands up, no fancy presentation. And I watch their shoulders drop. And they're like, oh, thank goodness. And I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. Then I'm going to make a recommendation. Sound okay? It sounds okay. Perfect. Here's what we're going to do today. So simplicity, budget. You don't make it too expensive for them. You also don't show them too many options, because a confused person doesn't move. And it's just, confused person doesn't move. And you create urgency around, death. You bring some emotion to it. So it's not just logical. It's, hey, we have to actually, figure out what would happen if you didn't come home tomorrow. What would Mary do? I think that's super important. So objections. So the path of least resistance is to get really, really good at an open, so that you don't get objections at the end. But of course, we all get objections. So I think the most, popular one that people, they want to hear your response, even though you probably don't get it very often, is, Steve, you're a great guy, but we really want to think about it.
That's awesome. You should think about it. What we're going to do here is have the insurance carrier think about it. Because you take some levothyroxine, and I don't know if they're going to take you. So we're going to submit this application, see if they cover you. Then we have 30 days to think about it. But the most important thing is that when I leave here today, just by applying, something happens to you, you're covered, and I did my job. Does that sound fair?
Sounds fair. That's good.
Something like that, along those lines.
Okay. And other popular objection, Steve, it's just, I just don't think that we can make that work in our budget.
All right, well, let's go back to the budget, because I have down here, we agree that you guys are saving about 200 extra a month. Maybe we missed something. Let's go back to it and also see what we could cut out that's not as important.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I think that one of the things new agents, they get caught up in, I need the perfect word track to be able to say to overcome the objection. But sometimes all you need to do is just like backtrack and slow down and re-explain what's going to happen.
Yep.
Like someone's like, hey, we want to think about it. Okay, perfect. Let's back up a little bit. Let me just explain what happens next. We're going to go ahead and submit a request for coverage. If the request is approved, you're going to have a 30-day free look period. Of course, they're going to take the first premium because you need protection and they want to make sure that you're taken care of, but you have 30 days to adjust this. We're going to go ahead and submit a request for coverage, see if you can qualify. Go grab me your driver's license. And sometimes you just have to like slow down and just re-explain the process again. So any final tips for the in-home, just little nuances, maybe something special that you do, anything that you do to maybe cement the sale once you have the sale?
Cementing it. I'll do things along the lines of, hey, I'm going to save your phone number in my phone right now. Obviously here's my card. Anything you ever need with insurance or this policy in general, or any insurance you're going to need for anybody in your family, I'm going to be your guy for insurance. I'm writing everything out for them. And then I am letting them know, hey, you're going to get the policy in about 7 to 10 days. Again, reach out to me for any questions. I always answer my phone. Like, it's kind of just some word tracks that I'm saying to basically then sell me and the fact of the service that I bring being me. Like, your policy is going to do what its policy does. The insurance carrier is going to do what they do. But like, nobody's going to give you more attentiveness than me. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to just sell that. It's almost like selling yourself at the end. And honestly, if you do a good job, I think in the in-home, like, they I find like if you create credibility throughout your in-home, because they're like, all right, like, this guy knows what he's talking about, like, and honestly, if you're new, you can sound like you know what you're doing when you don't know what you're doing, if that makes sense. And it goes back to, hey, when you're in the house, fill out your financial inventory, call your senior underwriter, Jamie, and he's going to tell you the right way to go. Your posture, even if you don't know, just act like you've been there before. And people are gonna, because you know more than they do, like you actually went and got a light, more than they do. So present yourself that way. And I think that was one thing that I always did that helped me, was like, even I didn't know anything to begin. But I knew where to get the answers, and I knew that I wasn't going to come off like I didn't know what I was doing. And you're selling yourself and your presence.
That's good. I've heard you got to be like a duck, calm on the water, but underwater you're paddling like hell.
Yeah, it's good. I like that.
You got to be calm on the surface. You have no idea what's happening. So, all right, Mary, I'm about 99% sure what direction we're going to go here. And in your mind, I'm 0% sure what direction. You just go ahead and call my senior underwriter, and he's going to give me a second opinion. And then I call Steve, I tell him what's up. He tells me American Eagle. And I go, perfect, Steve. That's exactly what I was thinking too. And then the client's like, oh, Jamie was thinking the same thing as a senior underwriter. Awesome. He obviously knows what he's doing. So that's good. So a couple questions, and we'll kind of close this thing out. This is from John Boger out in Ohio. What does the day-to-day activity look like for someone wanting to write $1 million in premium per year? And do you use any tools for efficiency in your workflows to help you produce at such a high level?
I think you need to be crazy organized. And I think like, to the point, like, I'm an Apple guy. So I have like everything calendared out throughout the day, like workout, dialing, team calls, interviews. Like, I have it all literally mapped out. I probably, if you looked at from a work perspective or doing work activity, from probably 7 a.m. to probably 7 p.m., 6 days a week, it's probably I'm doing something, for the business. So I think you have to make that sacrifice if you want to have the great rewards and successes that you're able to have, obviously producing at this type of a level. So I think that's pretty much like my activities are just, I'm focused on money making activities. Dialing is money making activities, running appointments, talking to agents, focusing on things that are going to protect the client or help an agent, write a policy. And just doing that literally like all day long, like to the point, like when I wake up at like 4, I go to my office and I'm probably on the computer for like 20 minutes before I go to the gym. Because I'm trying to get ahead, and obviously producing at this level, there's a lot of stuff that you have to manage, but you have to be really disciplined to a schedule where it's like every hour on the hour, I know what I'm doing. If not, you'll get lost.
Hey, and hence the reason why we weren't able to get Steve live on Monday night, because he's busy, as he should be. That's the deal, guys. So to be $1 million a year producer, you have to be busy, and not just busy with activity, busy with income producing activities.
Absolutely.
So next question is, how to overcome I don't need it. So this is someone who's already in the home. This is from Todd Hyatt. They're already in the home. Maybe they're sitting down with somebody that you've found is maybe not necessarily a wealthy client, but somebody who they've been smart. They saved up, they've got their 401ks, they've got properties, they've got savings. They did fill out the lead card and they did book an appointment, but by the end of the appointment, they go, you know what? We don't need it. We'll just pay for it through our savings. We'll just go ahead and pay for it through, we're self-insured. How would you handle a client like that?
Yeah. I love those. I think number one, it goes back to assumptiveness. Like you just said, you're there for a reason, right? So I'm always going to say things like, look, you guys have done a good job in saving money, saving assets. That's great. So one, I'm complimenting, right? As opposed to being challenging in like a combative way. And then I'm going to say things like, what's awesome is instead of using your money, of which you saved whatever, you can use the insurance company's money. So it's a much better investment. Like all the people that I have that are in your scenario that have saved X amount or have done X amount, they have insurance. And I think in your mind, I think sometimes agents, it goes back to the clients that say, oh, I can't afford it. Like if you go into this and think that people can't afford it or people don't need it because of income, whatever, they're selling you. You have to go into it knowing that everybody needs it. I don't care if you don't have a dollar to your name or you're a billionaire. You all need it. And you're there, obviously. So you have to get that out of your brain, because one person gets sold in the appointment, don't let it be you. But if they're throwing that to you, I love those, because like the first thing I can say is, well, you can afford it because you clearly have some income. And then I'm starting to take away, meaning like, okay, like, do you know how much it costs if you have cancer tomorrow, Bob? It's going to be a couple $100,000. So now you've saved a couple $100,000, which is awesome, but you wouldn't want to lose it in the next like month because it would cost you that if you had cancer tomorrow, right? So you're doing some things like that. And again, you're not going to win every battle, but you have to fight the battle in the house, because you always got to remember how hard it was to get in the house. So now you're there, and you got to put it all out on the table, and don't let your posture kind of slump down when you get that, because then they won. They know that they need it. They're just waiting for the right person, scenario, and the right thing to be presented to them to move. So that's how I would handle that.
Maybe just kind of a follow-up question. Maybe you have somebody they're older. So let's say they're in their 70s. I got a 72-year-old who has his own medical practice, and he's not really, he's pretty healthy, but he's just not, he's like, I didn't realize that $30,000 of, whole life, that was all I could get. That's way too expensive for what I'm actually getting. What do you do for somebody like that who maybe is older, whether they're healthy or unhealthy, but they're older, well off, and they don't like to see the low levels of coverage?
Yeah. The thing that I talk about there is the insurance carrier likes to sell you a bigger number for a shorter time, because obviously, Bob, there's less of an opportunity that they're ever going to pay it. But if they give you a smaller number, it's one, a guarantee you're going to see it. Two, it's going to build cash value behind it. So you could get to a point where you pay it up. And then you got to use that money and figure out like what their need was. If let's say it's equity protection or whatever, you got to spend that money for their beneficiary. You know what I'm saying? So now you start like painting that, oh, well, this is going to be 3 years of your mortgage, or this is going to cover the final expenses plus this, and this is going to do this. And I'll also say things like, you're in pretty good health, let's say, right? And you're 78, you're going to spend your money. So therefore, when you pass away, let's presume you live another 10 years, whatever it is, now there's nothing left because you spent it, because most people run out of money. But you would have this insurance here that's a guarantee that your son is getting $30,000, whatever it is. So that's usually how I would handle that.
I love that. That's good. From Logan O'Brien, what is one thing you would have done sooner starting in the business?
Oh, that's a simple one. I would have got an office quicker. I would have got a staff quicker. I would have taken building differently than I did. I mean, selling, I sold pretty high level when I started, so selling wasn't an issue, but I would have built quicker, and I would have probably been a little bit more passionate about it. And we'd probably be further along than we are now.
Love it. Okay, this is from Nat DiCarlo. He's the #1 producer in FFL America for the year so far. He's helped over 120 families in the first 2 months of the year. He's fantastic. He says, what advice and tips would you give an agent that's already producing at a high level to translate that into agency building success?
Yeah, it's a tough balance, because what you have to start doing is like your time balance. One, you have to understand you work in 2 jobs, you know, like you're selling and you're building. So number 1, your time that you're doing this goes from, let's say your producing time is 35 hours a week. Now your building time has got to be 35. Now we're at 70, 80 hours. You have to manage your time insanely well. And you got to try and balance best you can. You also have to make sure to not waste your time on people that are, time wasters, that, you know, people that you're hiring, stuff like that. I'd also say, you know, staff and leveraging you know, because you can't do it all. You can't do every interview. You can't do everything. So getting a staff, which is great because you can afford it. Whereas a lot of people that are not producing, you know, upwards of, you know, 30 families a month are not able to. So I think you're in a good position because you can leverage the capital that you have. And I think you need to just go all in on your time and figure out what you want. I mean, you know, building at a high level, if you say, hey, I want to get to, you know, VP in 2 months, go out, hire top-notch recruiter, pay extra for it, have different resources for recruitment, be recruiting yourself in your downtime, and just put your head down and go to work. It'll be hard. Trust me, it is, but you'll, you know, over time, it'll really build up.
That's good. I think he'll appreciate that answer. Marcy Wingate, I think you interviewed her on your health and
yeah, my girl Marcy. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you keep agents motivated and continuing to move forward?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think number 1, I don't think you can motivate anybody sometimes. I really don't. I think you need to, everything's a ground level, meaning hire motivated people. If you have an agent that's doing whatever they're doing and it's minimum, and you're talking to them all the time, there's going to come a point where it's like, you know what am I going to talk to you about anymore? We know the drill. We know what to do. You see everything. You've been to convention. You got to make the decision. Honestly, I think it comes to a point you almost leave that person alone and you just say, hey, look, like, I'm here. I want you to do what you're happy with doing. When you're ready for more, come to me and I'll give you everything I got. But I can't continuously pour time into someone to quote unquote motivate you. So I think when it comes to your recruitment in your interview process, like, it's almost like, not to say you're not going to hire those people, but you're going to just kind of like, you're going to bring them in and they're going to be over here and they'll do their thing, and all volume adds up. So if they do their thing, as long as it's good business and they're happy, cool. But then I'm going to go focus over here on the people that I recruited who showed me the initiative, like they are a self-motivated person. So I think in your interviewing, ask those questions like, hey, do you want to create a paycheck or get a paycheck? Understand who you're working with, because you're never going to motivate. I mean, I'm the number one producer in the company and I can't motivate some people some days. So, I mean, if I can't do it, I don't know if anybody can do it. You have to be a motivated person. So hire motivated people.
Love that. Last couple, Mike Curry, also a Hall of Fame producer. He's interested in your lead flow. And I think I'll take it one step further. Lead flow when you first started and how it has evolved, but then also what is some lead flow that you're seeing new agents find success with?
Yeah, lead flow when I started was a lot of, I mean, we had obviously different game, Facebook final expense. I had gotten a little bit of mortgage early on, and then that kind of increased over time because of availability. It was mainly Facebook final expense and like EverQuote at the time, because that's what was available. From a spend perspective, probably like 4,000 my first month, and then I think I went 5, and then I went like 6, and it just kind of progressed, and now I'm 2,500 a week, let's say. And now, you know, for new agents, I think diversity. I think if you're focused on 2 things early on for success, lead flow it might be one of the hardest things to learn and also the easiest things to learn, because you have to figure out what's coming at you and how quickly you can get it. So this way, you know, when you're sitting down, you know, what you got to dial. Obviously now the CRM, you know, they've especially ramped up instance 1 and 3 month, you know, we're doing the YouTube. There's a lot of different sources now that you have, a lot more, even mortgage vendors. So there's a lot more vendors than when I started. So I think having a mixture there, you know, I have a lot of mortgage. I do instance. I think another answer is never be afraid to try things. Just try it a couple weeks. If you like it, great. If you don't, change it. Like, you'll be okay off of 1 lead order if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Just make sure you work it hard enough. But I think that for new agents, I think if you're getting 100 instance in 1 and 3 months, and you're getting a 40% work spots discount, and you buy the 1,000 worth, and then you actually get like 1,400 worth of it or whatever it is, that's the way to have lead flow work for you. You know what I mean? Because you're getting 40% off of it. So don't jip yourself in that 40%. Buy what you would have bought to begin with. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And this one's from Josh Lockhart. Is there anything you're planning on doing different this year versus last year?
Yeah, getting an integrity deal. So yes, that's the number one thing. Yeah, I think I'm always trying to evolve. I don't want to be a one-trick pony. You know, we do have a lot of good growth coming. I definitely think we will hit board member within the next couple months. I think for me, I'm just trying to help as many people on our team that want to get there. And that's the number one focus. I need to produce to pay bills, income, staff, all that jazz. But I think you're always trying to evolve yourself in the business, where you're never saying like, all right, like I'm going to just keep doing the same thing. Because the reality is like, sure, like I could go write a ton, but is that going to get us to an integrity deal? No. So I think I'm trying to learn more as I am every day. How do I balance it even better? And then tip the scale more building to selling, you know. I think we're getting there. So I'd say that those are the things that I'm working on this year.
Love it. All right. Last question for me. This is one that I ask everybody here at the end. So we're on the road to Hall of Fame, and there's going to be some people who make it all the way down the road. They make it to the destination. There's going to be a bunch of people who fall off dead on the side, and people who land, you know, all kinds of different, you know, spots on the journey. What's your final piece of advice to somebody that they say, I'm going to make it to the end of this destination. I'm going to make it to Hall of Fame. I'm going to help 400 families. What's your last piece of advice for them?
When it gets hard, understand your goal. A lot of times people make the goal and then things get hard and they're like, oh, well, I forgot all about the goal. Remember the goal, but don't focus on the goal. And what I mean by that is focus on the activity. It's like I had a goal of, helping whatever the number is, 1,000 families, whatever the number turns out to be. That was a goal, but it was never like, oh my God, every day, that's the thing that drives me. That's the thing that I'm like shooting for. It was almost like I put the goal on the board, but then I focused on, like you said earlier, 4 run days, 8 appointments, in the field for 12 hours, over and over and over and over and over again. I also think with your goal, you should put right next to it what you're going to sacrifice, because a lot of people have a goal. A lot of people have a want, but then they don't have a what I'm going to give. It doesn't. It's just the way it works. It's like any relationship. You have to give according, as well to get, in a sense. So I think anybody that's on that road, understand that the road is a little bit windy and sometimes you can get thrown off, but you got to be able to keep yourself focused and focus on the things that you can control. And that's how many people I can get in front of each and every day, and break it down, take it day by day, hour by hour. Don't make it always so big. Make it more simple, because little wins add up to 34 families to 400 families.
Love it. Thank you so much, Steve.
And I'ma live it to death. Yeah.